Hello, and welcome to the weekly podcast that's starting up today. This isn't planned or anything like that. This is going to be off the cuff first episode. We'll see how long we get on with it and how well it goes, Who knows? What does this podcast entail? Well, let me tell you. I am going to be talking all things nerdy news stuff. Weekly talks about movies that have just come out or movies that I've recently watched that maybe I haven't watched before. There is a particular movie I'm going to be talking about today that I watched last night that I've got some very interesting thoughts on. It was a good film. We'll let you know later on what that is about. But first off, I want to talk about something that is just started up again, and that is Peacemaker. Peacemaker Season 2 has been a whirlwind, and that's where we're going to start today's podcast. So yeah, this is the Scrivopod podcast, and I thank you for joining me. So we start off with Peacemaker Season 2 on a previously on DCU, and it's pretty interesting because you get a lot of changes in there. You get the mention of Justice Gang, which wasn't in Season 1, and also you get the show up of Hawk Girl and Guy Gardner at the end, instead of it being the Justice League and it being Aquaman and the Flash. So that exchange is between those two instead of Aquaman and the Flash. So it's quite interesting to see already what is carried over. Majority of Season 1 is pretty much carried over, with the added storylines of the Justice Gang and everything that happened in Superman. This episode is very intriguing and very interesting, to say the least. It's a great first episode and it's a great opener because it shows exactly where we're going from here on out. I do think that they got the mad crazy stuff out of the way, or the filthy stuff out of the way. I think this is definitely going to be the filthiest episode of the whole series. I don't think we're going to get any more of that, which is fine, which is absolutely fine. But it is something to note that it is a great show, and it sets up what I think we're going to be getting in the future of the DCU. There are two ways it could go, and we'll get into those towards the end of the Peacemaker talk. But the show itself is actually really good, and I really enjoyed Season 1. And we're going into Season 2, I was even more excited knowing that Superman would play an important part in it. Not as a role, but in the fact that there's connections between the two shows. The two properties, shall we say. So obviously we get the Justice Gang in there. And but the episode starts off with eagerly trying to wake up Chris, because he wants to go for a fly, and it's snowing outside, so he can't take him outside, so he takes him out into what is essentially the Pocket Universe. They call it something else in this series, but it's basically the Pocket Universe that Lex created, but a better version that was created by Chris's dad. So yeah, that's sort of interesting. Eagerly gets let out, there's stuff flying around, and it's really good, just like the intrigue and the interest into what's going to happen next. Who we're going to see, who's going to pop up, that kind of thing, because of this sort of pocket universe. Eagerly sort of disappears. You get John Cena. I'm going to be calling him John Cena every now and then. Sometimes I'll be calling him Chris. But I know him more as John Cena or anything like that, I mean, it's weird to watch this and not see anybody there. But anyway, silly jokes aside. So yeah, Chris goes out there and eagerly gets his fly. And then you get this alien, which is kind of like Chris's neighbour in this pocket universe. And he's clearly going to be a important character going forward, because he's actually going to show up a little bit more, because he's in the actual credit scene. Although then again, saying that, you have the janitor that was barely in Season 1 from memory, and he was in the dance scene, right? So, like, maybe we'll get more and we'll find out more about what this alien species is, but it's really cool and really intriguing, and he goes out, uses the pocket universe to sort of get rid of vermin, by the looks of things. But it'll be interesting to see if we can get any more of that. So then, Peacemaker, Chris, is looking for Eagly, and he can't find him anywhere, right? So he's walking, and he starts to hear Eagly sort of like knocking at another door. And Chris walks through. So as you know, in season 1, Chris killed his father. It was a very big part of the first season because his father was a racist and a bigot, and he was a complete and like in the show. So Chris opens the door to this other universe, which outside that said door in the pocket universe is a bunch of helmets that are not Chris's, or at least not our Chris's. And he walks through the door and he sees his dad. His dad is alive in this universe, and he's like, "Hey son, you alright? You sleepwalking?" Something along those lines. And he just freaks out. Then we get into our new theme tune and our new dance and that, and it's so funny. Like, I forget what song it is, so I'm sorry to that. I think is it A New Rocks or something like that. But anyway, details will pop up later on that I'll bring up in a more detailed way as this sort of format continues, if it continues. But yeah, so we get this new title sequence, which the first time when it was "Do you want to taste it?" I remember thinking, "Oh, this is crazy. This is mad. This is something we've never seen before in a TV show." And it was fun. It was fun to hear. It was fun to see. And honestly, it just shocked me how much I actually started enjoying it. Like, at first, it wasn't something I was interested in. I was like, what the hell is Chris doing? But as it went on, it actually became something a lot more interesting and a lot more fun, and something that I actually would look forward to every time the season carried around. But anyway, I'm going to sort of rush through the rest of the episode now. Chris goes, he tries to join the Justice Gang. That doesn't go very well. He goes to see her Harcourt, who apparently that whole scene with her psychiatrist was so funny. Your face. You're talking about my face now? Well, let me do something based on your face. But yeah, it is just so funny to think about. And it's intriguing. It's just like to see these characters go the way they're going. You got Economist, who is still working for Argos, and he's keeping tabs on Chris because of this pocket universe. But realistically, Rick Flag Senior is keeping an eye on Peacemaker because he killed his son, Rick Flag Jr. So that's the reasons why. It's kind of intriguing to see that this is where those characters are ending up, and this is where the new characters are coming into it, and yeah, really intriguing. You got Adrian, who's working back at that diner place that he was working at in season 1. He had a really fun, interesting, I know everything about owls. Ask me a question about owls. Are their eyes tubed or round or something like that, or oval? And he's like, yeah, they're oval. And it's like, no, they're tubed. And it's like, well, shouldn't their eyes be falling out and all this and that? And it's just a fun little moment. But the big parts of this episode is, Chris has this conversation with Harcourt, who completely just denies anything that ever happened between them, even though something did happen on a boat that we don't know about, and we maybe find out more later on. Maybe it's left in the dark. Who knows? Right? So we get in all these little bits. You've got the character like the best friend, who's Amanda Waller's daughter. I forget her name. She's no longer with her Mrs. Kia. was the name, I think, the mistress was. But I can't remember what her name is. It's funny that. But yeah, so that's where she is. And so that's where all the characters are in this episode. Chris is distraught by how Harcourt treats him. So he goes home, he does some drugs. I found out from behind the scenes that actually John Cena didn't know how to light that bong. And when you rewatch the episode, you can kind of tell it's not something that he's done before. It's not something that he's used to. And it's actually really, really funny. And I really love it. But then we get this crazy-ass orgy scene. And it's literally just people around him. It's not Chris involved in it. But it's Chris trying to sort of get away from reality. And it's not working. Like, the drugs aren't working, the sex isn't working, the orgy kind of thing isn't working. He's not really feeling anything. And that's the point of this. Like, the point is not the sex that's going on around him, but the point is how he's feeling while it's happening around him. That's the point of it. He's feeling absolutely nothing from it. There are dicks swinging around, and there are tits all over the place, and he's not feeling absolutely nothing. There are people having sex, like full frontal sex, and he's just there. He just exists. And so I think it's just his realization that the only way I can get out of this reality is by physically getting out of this reality. So he goes to the door. He sort of stares at it for a while. Economist takes a photo, goes and has a conversation with Amanda Waller's daughter. And says, look, you need to keep an eye on him. And so this is the point where Chris goes into this pocket universe. He's walking towards the door. He goes in. He's looking around this house. It's a massive house. They've clearly done really well for themselves. There's like this thing about like the top trio and who's the third person and all this and that. It's very intriguing. And it's bloody Keith, his brother. So in this universe, he never killed Keith. He never accidentally killed Keith because his father was a better person. And we see that from the scenes with Chris and Keith and his father, that his father is a lot more loving and a lot more fun. And it's strange for Chris, because in that moment he's just looking around thinking, like, am I a dream? Is this real? And he spends some time with them. It's actually really nice, and he gets it. And there's a bit where, like, the dad walks away, he says he loves him. And he's a bit surprised by it, There's a bit where, like, he's touching his ear. It's very, like, paternal. In the sense of, like, he's touching his ear and it's like, I love you, son, and things like that. And Chris has never felt that before from his dad. So that part takes him back a little bit. And then he sees Keith and he decides to say to Keith that I love you. And the Keith's like, oh, whatever, dude. I love you too. And Chris just breaks down. Chris breaks down, like, big time. And it's actually really good acting from John Cena. Like, John Cena has definitely upped his game since season 1. And I fucking love it. I fucking love the fact that John Cena is committing to this like a motherfucker. And it's actually working. Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff from John Cena. Yeah, so anyway, just to split it up, because obviously there is a lot more to this afterwards. But we're going to split up with talking about Harcourt now, who goes to a bar. She's looking for a fight. It's clear she's looking for a fight. She's pissed off. She's annoyed with her life. She's smashing radios because it plays 30 Seconds to Mars and stuff like that. It's so funny. It's a stupid joke, but it's funny. And she gets... she beats up these big guys because they're all hitting on her. But then they beat her back like they are ruthless and beat the shit out of her and chuck her out. And she actually smirks at it. She smiles for a split second. You see it for a split second. She's happy about getting beaten up because she felt something. And it's interesting to see the parallels between Chris and Harcourt in this season are going to be very similar. She wants to feel something, and she felt something a little bit at the start. And Chris, being in this alternate universe, is feeling something. And I think that's what's going to bring them together towards the end of the series, if it goes that way. But obviously then we go back to Chris, who's, like Keith and his dad have gone to bed, and he's looking around the house and everything like that. He walks into a room, and it's clearly like this other Chris's room, and like the references in that room, the posters, like I will only point out one. I think Hanu Rocks is actually, I'll point out two. Hanu Rocks is actually normally spelled ROCKS, but in this instance it's ROXX. So that's an interesting. And then you've got the album by Def Leppard, Pour Some Sugar on Me, is actually Pour Some Honey on Me. So that's pretty cool as well. So we're seeing these little differences in this universe, and it's really fun. It's a fun little section of it. But then the original Chris from that universe, so our Chris is in that room, and the Chris from this universe comes home and he's like, "Who the fuck are you? You a shapeshifter or something like that? I'm gonna blow your head off," and that kind of thing, right? So the fight pursues. They fight. They get into the pocket universe. This Chris has got a jetpack, which is a cool reference to the first season, because in the first season, episode 1, Chris was asking for a jetpack and was expecting to get a jetpack, and he didn't get a jetpack. So it's interesting to see that this alternate universe Chris has a jetpack. So that's cool. First season reference. But the fight keeps going and things like that, and you think, oh shit, our Chris is gonna die. But then, of course, our Chris has been observant enough to see that how he uses the flying and the jetpack, and so he hits the button that does it and shoots the other Peacemaker up and kills him instantly. So we've got two people, so he's killed this alternate universe Chris, this alternate universe Peacemaker, and that's where the episode ends. And it's just like, oh shit, like, what's he gonna do now? Like, I called it from the start that he was gonna kill the other universe's Chris. I just did not see it being an accident. I thought he was gonna purposely kill the other Chris and then go into that universe and become that Chris. He's definitely gonna become that Chris for a little bit. I think he's definitely gonna spend some time there and just get that. But I think then something's gonna happen in our universe, the DCU universe, that's going to make Chris have to come back and possibly even bring help from his brother and dad. So yeah, that is pretty much the first episode of Peacemaker. It's definitely not as funny as the first season. The comedy is more mellow, I think, in this season, but I think it's learned better from that. And I think like the DCU going forward is going to be different in every aspect, but there's still going to be some through line that's going to be like staying calm and steady throughout the series. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where the rest of this season goes. So now I'm just going to move on now to talk about the film that I watched last night that has been out for a while. It's just going to be maybe a quick 5-10 minutes on it, and then we'll talk about some of the movie news stuff that's coming out. So I watched Blink twice last night. And what a film. Like, it has some stuff in there that I was not expecting. The twist, which, I'm not going to, it's a podcast. I mean, it's come out for a while now, so maybe I should talk spoilers. You know what? I'm going to talk spoilers. Spoiler warning, if you haven't watched Blink twice, do not watch. Do not listen to this podcast if you have not watched Blink twice yet. Oh my god, like, what happens in this film is so shocking. So, you get these waitresses that decide to be a little bit menacing and not menacing, but like a little bit mischievous and join in on this big gala thing. Channing Tatum plays a really good role in it, and they basically get invited to this island. You got actors in there that I wasn't even expecting. Like the guy from this, the guy that was like in a lot of the parody films. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But yeah, you get him in there. Christian Slater's in there. I haven't really described this guy who's in the parodies very well. He's in Scary Movie 3, is it? With the Signs references. He's Charlie Sheen's brother in it. And he does the whole rap thing. Like the 8 Mile thing. Parody. That's the one I'm talking about. So he surprised me being in this. Because I haven't seen him in for years. It makes me think maybe he's going to be in the new Scary Movie film. Because he's still acting. And then you get, I think he's the guy from Sixth Sense. I always get it wrong. The kid, Christian Slater. I think he's there as well. Yeah, but you get a lot of really interesting stars. But that is not the point of this film. The film point that shocked me the most, and it's the most shocking thing, is the stuff. That'll be bleeped out in the edit, I think. But yeah, it's a really dark aspect of this film, and the fact that they don't remember it happening, they don't remember being, odd, and when they start to figure it out, and when they start to find out from snake venom, which is a really cool concept. Oh boy, it's such a shocking film. I just wasn't expecting to see it. I really wanted to watch it anyway. It was a film that I always wanted to see. I just never got round to it. And I think, Channing Tatum, not much of an actor. In this, he plays a really completely different role, and it's really cool and really fun. And yeah, so I was really intrigued to see how that villainous sort of take, and he's actually really good at it. He does become himself a little bit more towards the end, with the way he talks, But yeah, it's a really good film that I just wasn't expecting going into it. And then you get to the twist ending, where she's basically made him forget everything that's happened, and she is now the CEO of his company, King. Slater King is his character name. And yeah, it's just really interesting to see. So I just couldn't believe the film. It had some really great stuff in there. But I don't know. But anyway, moving on now, and we're going to get into some movie news or movie details. So everything I'm getting is from the Screen Rant website at the minute. So this may change going forward. I'll probably get topics as I go along, so that we're not just talking about random shit or stuff that's just on one website. Some of this stuff might not even be a genuine thing, but I'm going to read some of these off the cuff. If they become interesting, then I'll read into it more, but if not, I'll just carry on, find something interesting. So this is going to be a messy one, but like I say, going forward, it's going to be a lot better. There is some news topics that I'll talk about in a minute that off the top of my head, that is some interesting stuff to talk about. So the first thing we're looking at on the top of Screen Rant is why Sydney Sweeney's new Western movie debuted with a poor $500K box office, explained by director. Yeah, I am a big fan of Sydney Sweeney. Don't get me wrong. I think a lot of people will know why I'm a big fan of Sydney Sweeney. Well, 2 reasons why. But but no, she's a decent actress, and she's done a lot of good things. It's just a plus that she's a gorgeous woman. But not something I'm interested in. I don't know what film that is. So, it's a film by Tony Tosts. How do you say that name? But anyway, you got another thing coming up is Mark Wahlberg sets 19-year reunion with The Departed star in new Apple TV movie. Okay, interesting. Not really. Why this actor's cameo in Eeny Meeny was so short. and no one cares. Looks like James Franco in the picture, but it's not. Netflix's new murder mystery based on best-selling book debuts with near perfect Rotten Tomatoes score. I'm going to guess this is only... No, it's not, is it? Because that's coming out in cinema. Okay, never mind. Well, yeah. Returning Avatar 3 villain revealed as Star teases revenge against crucial Pandoran creature. That was read out really badly, by the way. So, a returning villain from the Way of Water is revealed in a new image from Avatar Fire and Ash, with the actor teasing an intense revenge story. That could be interesting. That could be interesting. I didn't mind Way of Water. The thing with the Avatar films is like they all feel like the same film so far. I know we've only had 2 of them, but it feels like very similar story points. But yeah. Oh, here we go. An actress I really like. Margot Robbie addresses Harley Quinn return in James Gunn's revamped DC universe. Oh, okay. Okay, this could be interesting. Let's have a little quick read of this. The return of Harley Quinn in the DC universe has been addressed by Margot Robbie. Robbie has so far played the iconic DC Comics character 3 times in live action, in 2016's Suicide Squad, 2020's Bird of Prey, and then 2021's The Suicide Squad, which was... directed and written by the now DCU head, James Gunn. During an interview with Screen Rant Croson, I've probably butchered his name, while promoting her new movie, A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey, Margot Robbie discussed her potential future in the DCU. When asked if she would be reprising her role as Harley Quinn, Robbie said that she'd be a fun one to revisit. Talking about Harley Quinn, she'd be a fun one to revisit, but implied that no such return is currently planned. So that's interesting, So she is willing to come back, which I think, I really would love to see her come back as Harley Quinn. That would be interesting. So, looking through these quickly, there's nothing that's catching my eye. There's nothing catching my eye on these. The only things I want to bring up that I know off the top of my head is that there's some Avengers Doomsday stuff going on that people are questioning. Like, the actor who plays Nightcrawler, Alan Cumming, has come out and said there's a lot of green screen. That he doesn't know who he's actually acting beside or in front of. But that's expected in a lot of Hollywood movies nowadays. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that is true and that is the case. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. It's, like I say, it's something expected. And as long as it's not full of CGI characters, as long as there's a few dotted around, surely he's done a scene with somebody at some point. Unless they're doing the Beast thing, so it's completely CGI and he's not make-upped up, which I really hope he looks better than Beast, because Beast did not look good at the end of the Marvels. So there's that. There's some discrepancies on whether Robert Downey Jr. has demanded some reshoots as well. Take a lot of this with a grain of salt. The only thing that's guaranteed is the Nightcrawler thing. Apparently there was also a fight on set. That is something that you get all these actors in one room and they're in these suits for long hours, sweating like pigs. There obviously going to be a little bit of tension between the actors. And I think that's all it is. Just a little bit of tension. Apparently something was said that shouldn't have been said and things like that, but it's not, a big thing, So, yeah. That's the stuff I want to talk about with Avengers Doomsday anyway. I'm still looking forward to it. But I think I am slightly looking forward more to Supergirl than I am to Avengers Doomsday. And that's not something I was expecting. So we'll see how that goes going forward. So now I want to move on to some video game news. So obviously we've had the Legacy of the Dark Knight. Lego Batman. Well, I think it's Lego Batman 4, isn't it? but it's Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. This game looks awesome. So I recently got rid of my console, for personal reasons that I will not go into. This game looks sick. This game looks like a game I need to actually start buying the PlayStation 4 again. I cannot wait for this game. But the two games that I'm more excited about are more in my realm, and that is the horror games. And oh boy, these games look good. So I was very late to this one, so I'll talk about the second one that I'm thinking about. But there is a more exciting one coming that I want to talk about first. That I'll talk about last, and will be our last topic for this episode of the podcast. Freaking Hellraiser is getting a full story mode style game. This looks like it's going to be absolutely sick. I'm very late to it. I only recently saw the trailer last night, so but it looks amazing. The reason why it's not as big as the one that I'm about to talk about, while this game is probably going to be the bigger and better game, Hellraiser, but the next one that I'm talking about is one that I love so much that, you know what, I'm just going to say, Halloween. There's going to be an Halloween game that's going to be very similar to the asymmetrical games of, Friday the 13th and all that. The big draw for me is the story mode. There is going to be a story mode where you play as Michael Myers. And it might just be a case of you have to survive as long as you possibly can on that night. Sick. That's a sick idea. Some people are complaining, but you're only playing as Michael Myers. I want to play as Donald Pleasance, as Sam Loomis, or Laurie Strode, or all this and that. No. Playing as Michael Myers, the point of view of Michael Myers is so cool. And I could see there being so many, they said it's a replayable story mode. So it makes me think that maybe the campaign it's not going to be any longer than an hour. Which is fine. Or it's as long as you can make it, depending on how long you can survive. Like a Dead by Daylight kind of thing, can you survive till daylight kind of thing, as Michael Myers. This game looks really good, and I cannot wait to see where it goes. So yeah, they're the games that I want to talk about. We're still waiting on some Wolverine news. Still waiting to see what the next Spider-Man game is going to be. Is it going to be a sort of Venom game? Are we going to get Spider-Man 3? All interesting stuff, and all stuff I'm going to have to get a PlayStation 4 and play, and give you my thoughts on those when it comes around to it. But, so yeah, this is going to aim to be a weekly thing. This podcast, this Scrivopod podcast. Get it wherever you can get your podcasts from. I'm going to see if I can get this distributed. If not, it might just be on YouTube, and I'll have an image pop up about what I'm talking about, and it'll be on one of my channels. You'll be able to find it eventually. I'm thinking maybe either I make a new channel or do it on my Scrivosphere channel. That's fine. But this is basically the format going forward. It will be mostly my voice. Hopefully in the future, if we get big enough, we can get some guests on, or I can get other people talking on the show. But I've only got one mic and I'm one small desk in a corner, so it's not like it's going to be a big production or anything like that. But yeah, I thank you all for listening, if you have listened, wherever you have listened to. And I will look forward to talking to you next week. We will be talking again, Peacemaker, episode 2. I also am going to talk about a little bit about Alien Earth, and Resident Alien is going to be a topic as well. So I think we're going to have a lot beefier episode. It's going to be a longer episode. There may be less news in there, but there'll be a lot more topics to talk about. But yeah, anyway, thank you for listening. This is the Scrivo podcast, and have a good day.